Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Made in New England interview series, where we talk with New England-based companies and the people who lead them. I'm your host, Steve DeVries, and today we have a very special edition of the podcast. I'm really excited to host the team from the New Hampshire Manufacturing Extension Partnership today, and I'm going to introduce them all to you. So we have Tony Fernandez, the president of the MEP. We have Eric Basta, business development manager. We have Kara Tracy, the marketing manager. We have Roy Vangermeer, Workforce Development Manager, and Brian Knapp, Supply Chain Advisor. Welcome to all of you for joining. This is a first for me with so many people on the podcast.
Thank you, Steve.
Morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
So, Tony, maybe you can kick us off and just tell our audience who aren't familiar with the MEP, what is it that the MEP does?
Well, I think first we should explain who the MEP is. We are a government agency that is primarily funded by the Commerce Department. There's an MEP in every state and one in Puerto Rico, so there's 51 MEPs. The structure is different in every state. Some states have state support. Some states run through the university system. Some states run through the Chamber of Commerce. Ours is 100% funded by the Commerce Department. And basically the way we work is we have three pillars. We have an education pillar, we have a workforce pillar, and we have a supply chain pillar. And the people on the tiles could basically explain and expound on those pillars as we go through the podcast.
Wow. Okay. So what are some specific examples of ways that the MEP supports manufacturing companies in New Hampshire? Roy, let's start with you.
Well, as a whole, the MEP is responsible to go in and introduce themselves to the customer and see what their overall business needs are. And then we have different teams in the office that would address them. More and more, for me, it's become workforce development. And the manufacturers in the state are basically ran out of new employees. So they're getting into the school systems now, high schools, 2-year and 4-year colleges, and even as early as middle schools. So the companies, a big ask out of them this last year has been, please introduce us to our local economy. Can you introduce us to the schools? It could be a Chamber of Commerce. We haven't gone down that road yet, but they want to meet their community finally and find their next generation of workers.
Wow. So you're even into middle schools. That's amazing.
That's a push we didn't start. It's where we're just following. Yeah.
This is coming from your clients.
Well, it's a need from the client because the workforce needs are just too big for the population we have right now. And so why not go back for 4, 5, 6 years and start the manufacturing buzz, and then the students are asking about it by the time they reach high school.
And so the idea is to, maybe encourage looking at a different path as opposed to the traditional 4-year college, perhaps maybe more technical training and heading into the manufacturing workforce. Is that about right?
Yeah, correct. What happens is with most young people is we only know what our parents do for work. For me, I thought that my mom was in the other business and my father was a machinist. And that was the two things I knew about. So fortunately, I went to a trade high school and we did vocational, cross training, basically. Your first year, you went to about 7 different trades and got to look at new things. I was like, wow, turns out I like machining after all, personally. But yeah, we got to get the buzz. Even the parents don't know about this stuff, right? When we go to school events, parents look at all the modern technology in manufacturing area and they're like, wow, I never saw this before. I didn't know this existed. They see computers and they think, oh, my kid's going to work with technology. So we just try to get the buzz going.
That's amazing. And so from a supply chain perspective, Brian, you work with clients in terms of supporting their supply chain, improving it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so good question. It's all around that. So what we do is we are trying to build a strong, resilient supply chain with our New Hampshire manufacturers. So to do that, there's many ways. We offer an opportunity where we have strategic sourcing. I have a national network that allows us to put in parts or items that a manufacturer needs. And I have, as Tony had mentioned, there's 50 MEP centers plus Puerto Rico. So I can tap into a network that allows us to look into each of these states and find a manufacturer for a specific product. And it works both ways. I also can put New Hampshire manufacturers looking for parts or material and put it into our network, and allows us to see domestic supply chain. And it's very important, as as you hear all of the buzzwords and the issues of reshoring and bringing things back, BABA, Build American, Buy American, and trying to ensure that we're bringing all the manufacturing back to the U.S. And we have the tool that helps with that. So that's a big thing that we push and continue to drive. Plus, also, we are trying to map and understand the ecosystem for New Hampshire, understand the manufacturers that are out there, what their capabilities, what they're certified to do. And it allows us to help with that, grow their business and grow their supply chain.
Amazing. That must be really powerful, especially for smaller businesses that maybe don't have large supply chain departments or expertise.
Correct. And we focus on the small, medium-sized manufacturer and offer this to all of them and grow. Even our state agencies use our tools.
I'll tell you, earlier in my career, I could have used that kind of help. That's where I started was in purchasing and supply chain, and I was sending a request for quote for machine parts to sheet metal places and for electronics parts to the wrong places, and so having that kind of training and support would have been amazing, and I had to learn it the hard way.
Absolutely. So did I. After 35 years, learning about the MEP and being able to come and take a role here and move towards better tools and understanding all of that has been a godsend. And yes, we're trying to get it out to all manufacturers in New Hampshire.
Very cool. So when I look at your website, I also see offerings for different kinds of workshops. Eric, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure, Steve. So there's kind of the nuts and bolts stuff that we do to make them more efficient, streamline their operations. So we handle all the ISO standards, just the standards for basic ISO all the way through to aerospace and medical device. We do a lot of lean training, various lean training, such as Kaizen events, value stream mapping, blueprint reading, and geometric dimension intolerancing, especially for those just coming into manufacturing that really need that background. Plant layout, so they can lay out the plant in a more efficient fashion. We do a lot with CMMC, which is the standard now for cybersecurity for working with the DoD. And there's some others, but we also put on a number of webinars, free webinars. We just last year we did leadership, one on energy, one on sustainability. Or actually a couple on leadership, I believe. And then there's some upcoming ones, employee benefits, intellectual property, another one on the CMMC, the latest updates on that. And that one we're partnering with Constep, which is the Connecticut Manufacturing Extension Partnership. So it's kind of a dual event. And we're also planning one on the using AI in manufacturing to again, help with efficiencies and also save you money. So there's quite a bit that we do at NHMEP for training and awareness.
That's amazing. So, I mean, the three of you just gave some great examples of what the MEP can do to support New Hampshire manufacturers. So I would love for the audience to hear, easy for me to say, some success stories from some of your clients. I mean, who could jump in here and share some success stories?
Yeah, Steve, I will on that one. And I'm not going to mention any company names. I'm just going to say, they're manufacturers that we've worked with. One of them, I'm just going to rattle off some numbers here, and there's a lot more numbers, but I'll try to keep it brief. This company, so basically, let me preface this by saying, they'll work on a project with us. The project can take, a few months to a year or so. And then about a year after the project is completed, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, requires us to survey them to see how they've done, showing impact and results from what they went through. So this manufacturer here, in 1 year's time, increased their sales by $1,120,000. They retained sales. Oh, let me also say this was a lean program. They retained sales of $250,000 that otherwise would have been lost. So in other words, going through lean helped them also to retain sales that they may not have been able to continue having. And they also added a job, and they retained 8 jobs over that past year.
This is another one. This one went through CMMC, which is a cybersecurity standard. They achieved $100,000 in new sales over the last 12 months. They retained $1 million over the last 12 months of sales, and they added 4 jobs in that amount of time. And these are all fairly small, 1 to 50 employee manufacturers.
That's what the manufacturing base is made of largely here in New Hampshire, right? Is lots of small businesses.
Exactly, the SMEs they call them. So this one went through a marketing program that we don't offer it anymore, at least not right now. We may in the future. But after going through that, a year later, $700,000 in new sales, and then they added 3 new jobs and retained 3 jobs over that time. And I won't bore you with much more, but this company went through an ISO program, which is 13485. I believe that's for the medical device. And they retained sales of $100,000, but they also attained another $5,000 in new sales. So, and they just really started implementing the program. So, and these are just a few, Steve. There's a lot more, but I know we don't have that much time.
One thing that I wanted to share that's kind of the accumulation of all of the work that we do throughout the year is our annual summit. And we have that in October. And October is an important month because it's also known as National Manufacturing Month. So it's a time to celebrate manufacturers across the country and to really shine a light on the work and the importance that manufacturers have in our everyday life, because they really touch everything that we do. So I think it's a time to really make sure that we acknowledge just how important manufacturing is. And in our little state of New Hampshire, we have our annual summit, which it will be held on it's the first Friday of October. So this year it will be on October 3rd. And last year we hosted the event, and we actually had to move the location because the attendance had grown so much. So, which was great because that means that we're reaching more and more manufacturers. So last year, at the event we hosted, it was just shy of 400 attendees. And it's just a great opportunity for all of the manufacturers to really come together, network, meet, and to learn about each other, because the whole point of, what we do in our work is to really connect people and to establish the right connections and relationships. So the summit is a great opportunity for that. So we encourage our manufacturers to attend and take that one opportunity throughout the whole year to really network and meet their counterparts and to share ideas and learn new technologies and learn about new items that may be on the forefront, just to keep our manufacturing in New Hampshire moving forward. So this year, we again are planning the event, and it will be the first Friday in October. So it will be October 3rd, and we're hoping everything will fall into line, and we will be hosting the event at Castleton in Londonderry again. So more information to come.
Well, so I was at last year's event, and it was fantastic. You get to see all the networking that you talked about, and people just collaborating together, and some great speakers talking about some really relevant topics for the manufacturing community. So I'm glad you brought that up. Brian, did you say you had something you wanted to share from a success standpoint?
Yeah, we'll let Tony go first, but then I'll finish up, Steve.
Why don't we let Brian, because I want to cap this off with one statement after Brian is done.
There you go, Brian. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So as Kara said, we collaborate and connect with many, many different organizations, companies. We've had the opportunity to collaborate with our state agencies recently and be able to meet with manufacturers from other countries and other states that want to move to New Hampshire. So we're also very active in helping that process where a company is looking to relocate. We look at For me, I'm looking at their material and are they able to source it locally? Are they able to bring it in to be a domestic supplier? We are looking at all of that, collaborating, and we've seen 3 manufacturers over the last 2 years willing to move into New Hampshire and start business here. So plus we help all of our existing, but we're also trying to grow our ecosystem.
Fantastic. Tony, did you want to add on to that, or are we ready to move on?
I'd like to just make one statement. Eric is a seasoned vet here at the MEP. The rest of us are here 2 or 3 years. And I think the biggest success story that we could talk about, and we talk about it all the time at the office, when we started, we hunted, we called, we did everything. It's changed over the past year. Now the phone is ringing, and people know the MEP, and people want to be part of it. That is our biggest success story. We've gone from the hunter to the hunted. And that's the transformation.
That's fantastic. So I would imagine an organization like yours doesn't exist in a vacuum. So can you talk to us a little bit about who are some of the key partners that the New Hampshire MEP works with?
Sure. We have 3 primary partners, the first being the BEA, the Business and Economic Development Group itself. They are actually an extension of the MEP in that they work within the community. We're a small organization, so we depend on them to do the outreach, to get us involved in the process. So that's the biggest thing. The next thing that we're working with, or the next 2 groups, are really important. Both the community colleges, and Roy will talk about that with the career fairs and things that we do, because they're workforce. The other group that we work with is UNH. Now, UNH is great from the standpoint of not only the teaching, the education, but the innovation side of the Olson Center. Hopefully next year, we're going to actually have a physical presence at UNH that will allow us to even interact more. The Olson Center is a great incubator for manufacturing. And during the year, they'll have it in as many as 40 to 50 companies working within the Olson Center in the manufacturing realm. So that's a good part. The other things that we work on are some of the ancillary agencies. We work with Army, the Regen Valley, for regenerative medicine. We work with the Tech Alliance, again, from an innovation standpoint. We do a lot with NATIC. NATIC is the defense agency, primarily working with NASA. And community banks, as well as the national banks. There's a lot of outreach that goes out with us because right now, investment in 2020 is going to be high in manufacturing. We have to bring it back. And one of the things, because Roy will talk more about workforce, is we don't have the workforce. So cobots, looking at the automation process, it's going to be capital intensive. The banks really want to be participating in that. And the last thing which supports the bank is the SBA and the SBDC. There are programs out there that we work with those sister agencies for lending. But I'll hand it off to whether it be Roy or Brian, who can talk even more about what we're doing with our partners.
You want to lead, Brian?
No, you go ahead.
Right. Okay. Well, we've done a lot of, Tony mentioned career fairs and relationships with the community colleges. We're, primarily we work in Southern New Hampshire. So right now we've got really great relationships with NHTI, MCC, and NCC. Been working with them for a little over a year. Our workforce team is relatively new. We're just under 2 years old. And we've really taken a whole new approach at this workforce thing based on the need for young people. So some examples of collaborations with the community college lately. In partnership with the Navy, they've been spending a lot of money on education and welding and machining curriculums in New Hampshire. So we've helped set up boot camps at the 2 community colleges, Nashua and Manchester. They offer free welding programs and free machining programs now to anybody off the street. Walk in, 100% free, and you basically leave with a job. The employers meet you as you're at the boot camps. So those are ongoing programs. And then I'll speak to something as recently as the last 3 nights. We took people from the streets to those programs, fed them, entertained them, and let them actually work on equipment. So they got to weld the other night for the first time, most of them, 8 or 9 students at the welding program. And then last night at the machining program, we had a group of about 10 or 12 students from the Nashua area primarily, who came and actually got to run a CNC machine and make a name tag, if you will. And those folks all left with, they entered with basically dead ends in their careers. Either they didn't finish school and they got into a job they realized wasn't working for them, or maybe they had a family decision that, hey, we got to start over, we got to do better. And they make the sacrifice to let one of the spouses go to these programs. in the end, they share success stories. Like last night, we had students talk that already attended these programs and their lives have been changed. In fact, one of the students was homeless. The program fed him, housed him, trained him, and now he's working at one of the better manufacturers in Southern New Hampshire.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Real couple more quick things. So in the summer, we helped the Manchester Community College with what they call their summer camp. So they brought in middle schoolers from all over the state and introduced them to manufacturers. So we basically had tours at manufacturers for the students. And then other days, the manufacturers came in and presented. General Electric, Hitchner Corporation, BAE, you name it. The big companies are earlier to the game of working with the younger people because they've done the research and they see where the demographics are.
Roy, I got to interrupt for just a second.
Yeah.
What is the reaction of students or just people who are being exposed to some of these manufacturing opportunities for the first time? When I was younger, I thought about manufacturing as being kind of a very dark, dirty kind of environment. And we all know, at least the group here knows, that that's not necessarily the case. So can you just share with us, what is the reaction when people see what manufacturing is all about today?
Yeah, well, the good news is our younger folks are into technology like we don't even understand, right? And the equipment now is the same technology. I mean, we had a robot recently at an event where the robot distributor thought to come in and have it run off a gaming console. So the students walked up, they picked up a PlayStation controller, and they ran a robot, and they were passing snacks out to other students with the robot. And they're all just blown away. They see the connection between their video game problem, if you will, to the opportunity to roll it right into technology. Last night at the Nashville Community College, we had a pretty neat experience. A couple of parents came in with their son, who is said to be on the spectrum, and he has a very difficult time catching on to anything. But they had a feeling he would be good hands-on. So he came in last night and was able to load a part in the CNC machine, look at the coding, and he walked out with a name tag with his initials on it. And she said, the mom told me at the end of the night that they've never seen their son that happy. And he's about 20 years old. So, that's the impact. I mean, having the parents see their child do better and the child smiling. And I don't want to say child. I mean, a lot of these people, we had a 60-year-old gentleman there last night, but this other student was rather young. They're blown away by it. The technology. I remember Tony made a reference to the Jetsons recently. You literally are opening doors to machines, putting something in, or in some cases not putting anything, hitting the button and getting a real product in your hands moments later. It's high tech. I mean, the kids today are going to do better than my generation ever did.
Absolutely. And that's how it should be, right? We should the next generation should always be able to move the ball forward and have it just a little bit better, I think. So last question. How can New Hampshire manufacturers get involved with the New Hampshire MEP? Is it as simple as picking up the phone or sending an email? How do we do that?
Well, our biggest success has been our networking. That is really the key. I'm going to let Carrigan talk about our social media accounts, things like that. We do it two ways. We do it from the networking, from the physical standpoint, the website, the LinkedIn accounts and things like that. But primarily, it's a face-to-face meeting. It's amazing what we find out when we actually knock on the door or we visit a manufacturer. They don't know what we do. We are not sure exactly what they do, but we know what the end result should be, success. And really, from that aspect, that's what's happened over the past 2 years with the group that's on the tiles right now. We've been more open to the fact that we got to help people, and people do need help. So I'll just open it up to the other people on the tiles. They could talk about it, but the key thing here has always been networking.
Carrie, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just thinking also, kind of speaking to what Roy was talking about. I think one of the key components in order to educate the community on what we do is to talk, to really get manufacturing in the forefront and to really be able to talk about what it's like now, to change the stigma that so many of us had, or have in our minds what manufacturing is. Because I will admit, I am new to the manufacturing industry as of, 3.5 years ago. And I had a vision, in my mind what manufacturing was. And I have been my mind has been blown, I will say, because as I've grown in my position here at New Hampshire MEP, I've really become very excited about manufacturing. And that says a lot, because as I said, my vision of what manufacturing was something so different. And I have realized that there's so much potential in manufacturing in terms of the workforce. And the really important group of people that we need to reach and educate are the parents of these young children, because they are the ones that are planting the seed as these middle schoolers are coming into high school, where they'll have more opportunities to explore the different technologies and to really talk about and think about possibilities of careers in manufacturing or in the trades, which is, that kind of falls aligned with what we do. But the manufacturing community offers so many careers other than just, what we envision working on an assembly line. Careers, exist in human resources, in finances, in business, and sales and marketing. So there are so many, there's so much potential in the industry of manufacturing for people to really gain a lifelong, sustaining professional career. And you don't need to go to the 4-year college path necessarily. You can do the trade school and get training on the job. So I think that's really one of the key, back to kind of my beginning, is really the key is to educate, to really get the education out there and the knowledge of what manufacturing is and how important it is and all the potential that exists for careers in manufacturing. And we're doing that through these the job fairs and the work that Roy is doing, and also through education at the workshops that Eric leads, and educating people out, in the community that way. So yeah, I think it's important to make sure that we get the word out. And that's mainly what we do, is communicate and educate.
Love it. So if I had to summarize what I heard here today, so the New Hampshire MEP helps attract manufacturing companies to come to New Hampshire, which creates jobs and so forth. It's always good for the state. You're helping companies get better themselves in terms of developing their workforce, training, supply chain, all those different things that you talked about before. You're helping people get trained for new jobs, and you're impacting lives that way. Is there anything that the New Hampshire MEP doesn't do? I know it sounds a little corny maybe, but I mean, you guys
won't make
just,
you lunch.
yeah, right?
We don't cook any food.
You're having this big impact for such a small team. And I'm not sure that anybody really understood or understands the breadth of the way the MEP supports the New Hampshire manufacturing space. So I just think that's amazing. Tony, go ahead.
I think just to wrap this up, the important thing that I want people to understand, and I think why manufacturing, or why we as a group are having so much success over the past couple of years in manufacturing, is that the culture of learning has changed over in this country. It's no longer a textbook process itself. And manufacturing is inclusive. It allows people to visually learn. This is what Roy has been talking about. You can take any person from the highest education level to the lowest education level and introduce them to a piece of equipment and visually instruct them on how things work. And it becomes interactive. Hey, like you talked about with a video game, can you do this? Can you do that? They're the ideas. It is no longer the textbook and the manual where you open it up and do this, do this. No, here's the part we're going to make. Here's how we do it. Here's the control level that we're going to work with. And let's try to make this part. And basically what happens is, Roy could probably explain it a hell of a lot better than I do. The people who we are training actually start to train us, because they know, just like he's talking about, a lot of these younger people know the technology so much better than we do. So they're embracing that technology. And I find it myself, even in everyday life. When you open up, that's one of the things we talk about. The minute you open up a textbook, people start leaving. So we as manufacturers understand that.
So I think that's a great jumping off point here. So for all of you that have been watching and listening, we have been meeting with the New Hampshire Manufacturing Extension Partnership team, learning all about the different ways that the MEP impacts the New Hampshire manufacturing scene. So I'd love to thank all of you for being here today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I can't wait to share it with everybody. And for all of those of you who've been watching and listening, thank you for tuning in and learning about the MEP. They're a great resource. Last thing, Kara, what's the website where people can go and learn more?
Sure. The website is newhampshiremep.org. So nhmep.org. Pretty
Fantastic.
simple. And I highly suggest one place that you might want to start is checking on the events tab, because right under there is all of the projects and all of the events that we're involved in.
Fantastic. Once again, thanks everybody for joining us today, for joining me, and look forward to our next podcast episode coming up very soon. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very
again.
much.
Have a
Thank
nice
you,
day.
Steve.
Thank you.